Hi, you guys, and thank you. We're up to 3,100 views on YouTube. Yay! Okay, take a look at comparing decimals. So the first thing, let's talk about place value. You always want to notice where the decimal point is because that's always your starting point when you're trying to determine what the place values are. So the number just in front of the decimal point is the ones, and then right next to that would be tens. Right next to that would be hundreds, and right next to that would be thousands. Now find the decimal point again and look behind it. So the first number after the decimal point is tenths, THS, and then the next number would be hundredths, THS, and then the next number would be thousandths, THS. Okay, so the first thing they want us to do in example 1 is compare positive decimals. So let's say that we were comparing 6.5 with 6.75. What I usually ask people to do is just write the numbers that were given, okay? And then grab your colors. So I used a yellow so that it wouldn't block out everything. But notice the decimal point where it is, and then notice the number right in front of the decimal point, the 6. Do you see how it's the same? Whenever it's the same, I cross it out because it's not going to help me determine which one's bigger or smaller when they're the same. And then find the decimal point and look right after the decimal point. I see a 5 and I see a 7, so I underlined those in red. And since 5 is definitely smaller than 7, I would put the is less than symbol here. So their question was, which container has more juice? It would have to be the bigger number, so the 6.75 has more juice. Okay, so take a look at the guided practice. They want us to copy and complete the statement using is less than, is greater than, or equal to. Alright, so the first thing I did with my blue pen is I copied the numbers they gave us. 3.48, I put that circle, and then 3.4. Now, what I did with my red pen, I want you to notice, see how it has 3.4, and then with my red, I added that invisible 0 at the end. Alright, and now I start comparing. So I find my decimal point, and I look right in front of it at the 3's. Since the 3's were exactly the same, I used my yellow and I crossed them out. They won't help me decide which one's bigger or smaller. Then look right after the decimal point at the 4's. Again, they matched, so I crossed them out. They won't help me decide which one's bigger or smaller. Then I found the 8 on this side, so I underlined it in red, and I had put that 0 on the other side, underlined it in red, and now I compare. 8 is definitely bigger than 0, so I put the is greater than. So the way I finish this is I say 3.48 is greater than 3.4. Take a look at number 2. The first thing I did was write out the numbers that they gave me, 6.35, and I put my open circle, and then 6.53. And then I grab my colors so I can start to compare. Since 6 matched with 6, I just struck it out. Okay, it doesn't help me. And then I found the 3 right after the decimal point and the 5 right after the decimal point. Well, they're different, so I underlined them in red, and I just decide which one's bigger. Of course, 5 is bigger than 3, so I put the is less than symbol. So I would say 6.35 is less than 6.53. Okay, take a look at number 3. I write it out, 9.15, I put my bubble, and then 9.1. And since I want to add that invisible 0 after the 1 so I can compare the numbers, and now I take a look at the 9, and they are the same, so I strike them out. And then right after the decimal point, I see a 1, and they're the same, so I strike them out. And then I see a 5 and a 0. Since 5 is definitely bigger than 0, I put the is greater than symbol. So 9.15 is greater than 9.1. Okay, so when we're comparing positive and negative decimals, remember, negatives are always smaller than positives. Put that in your note-taking guide, okay? And you know that already. So what I did is I graphed these. So 1.25 would be after the 1 right there, and then negative 0.6 is right about here after the 0. It's on the left-hand side, it's negative, and then negative 1.2 is just a little bit past negative 1, and then 0.4 would be right there, and then 0.65 is just right there. Okay, and so I used the number line. It can definitely help you. And then you just read them. Since they want us to order from least to greatest, I just read the number line from left to right. So it would be negative 1.2, and then negative 0.6, and then positive 0.4, positive 0.65, and positive 1.2. Or 1.25, sorry. Okay, take a look at example 3. Now they're going to make these a little bit trickier, okay? So they said which list orders the numbers, and they give us these numbers from least to greatest. Well, the first thing we have to do is make everything look like decimals so we can compare. You know what negative 0.3 is. It's just negative 0.3. And then remember what these symbols are called. This is the absolute value. And absolute value is a steps away from 0. And so the absolute value of negative 6 is, the absolute value of negative 0.6 is 0.6. And then we had to change 4 over 5 to a decimal. Remember, 4 divided by 5, you use the in and out if you need to divide, and that would be 0.8. And then we have negative 0.35. So now I'm going to put them in order. The first thing I grab are the negatives, and I compare them because I know the negatives are going to be smaller than the positives. So over here I wrote it out, negative 0.3, and I added that 0 in red, compared to negative 0.35. Well, I crossed out the 0 because they were the same. I crossed out the 3 because they were the same, and that left me with 0 and negative 5. Well, you should know that 0 is always bigger than negative 5, and so I put the is greater than. So that means the smallest number in the group is negative 0.35. So I crossed out choice A because they didn't have that. I crossed out choice C because they didn't have it, and so it was between B and D right now with the negatives. And so then I just have to look at the positives. Well, 0.6 is definitely smaller than 0.8. So now I know the order. It should be negative 0.35 and then negative 0.3 and then the absolute value of negative 0.6, that's positive 0.6, and then 4 over 5, that's 0.8. Okay, so I just picked a couple to talk about. We're going to order the numbers from least to greatest. So let's look at number 4 and number 5. And so, taking a look at number 4, I have 6.4 with a bar over it. Do you see that bar over it? That means the 4 repeats forever. And then I have negative 6.35, I have 6.4, and then I have negative 6.3. So the first thing I did was compare the negatives right here. So I put negative 6.35, and I put my open bubble, and then negative 6.3. And so I saw the 6's match, so I crossed out the 6. I saw the 3's match, I crossed those out, and that left me with negative 5 compared to the opposite of 0. Well, 0 is just 0. So I know 0 is bigger than negative 5, so I put the symbol this way. And then I compared the positives. So notice what I did. See the 6.4 with a bar over it? I wrote it out a little bit, 6.44, and then I put dot, dot, dot. And then I put my open circle, and then I wrote 6.4. And there's no bar or anything. That means there's a 0 after the 4. So I put it there. And so then I started to compare. The 6's were the same, so I crossed those out. The 4's were the same, so I crossed those out. And that left me with a 4 compared to a 0. Well, I know 4 is bigger than 0. And so then I put it all together. The smallest number in the group, and I went down here, so the smallest of all of them was negative 6.35. Then I'd have to put negative 6.3. Then I put positive 6.4, and the biggest number was positive 6.4 repeating. Okay, take a look at number 5. It's negative 0.2, positive 0.4, negative 0.52, and then positive 0.25. So again, I just grabbed all the negatives to compare. So I did negative 0.2 compared to negative 0.52. So I crossed off the zeros, they matched, and then I saw that the 2 and the 5 didn't match. I know since it's negative, okay, be careful because this is negative 2 compared to negative 5. Well, negative 2 is bigger than negative 5, so I put the symbol this way. All right, and then I compared 0.4 to 0.25. And so the zeros matched, crossed those out, and then I underlined the 4 and the 2. Well, I know that 4 is bigger than 2, so I put the arrow this way. Okay, so now we have to put all that information together down here. So I know the smallest number of all of them was negative 0.52, and then I'd have to put negative 0.2, and then for the positives, it would be 0.25 was smaller, and then 0.4 was the biggest. So I put those in order.